Ivanka Trump there, the first daughter, also special advisor to U.S. President Donald Trump, weighing in here at the Global Women's Forum here in Dubai. We're here for the second day. We're talking about just one there of 3,000 delegates from 87 countries, including our guest, Her Excellency Rania Al-Mashat, the International Cooperation Minister from Egypt. It's fantastic to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I want to kick off by asking you to weigh in on your thoughts regarding this region in particular, because obviously the UAE is a standout when it comes to gender equality. That's all been led by the government. How do you see that evolving throughout the region?
Well, first, women issues are taking a very important turn. In the past, it used to be taken a bit lightly, a minority that wants more voice, more representation. What we see with international organizations weighing in, actually providing statistics on how important women participation is for GDP growth, for productivity, etc. Of course, SDG number 5 on gender equality is extremely important, and pushing the other SDGs as well. The region, as you mentioned, has been doing quite impressively. Saudi Arabia is doing great. UAE also has very important policies that are taking place. In Egypt as well, there's so much that is going on when it comes to women empowerment. We have a national strategy. There's more on political empowerment. I was the first female Minister of Tourism just 5 weeks ago, and now Minister of International Cooperation. We have 8 female ministers in cabinet, 15% in parliament, and many more in store for the year ahead.
I think it's fascinating to watch all of this sort of playing out, and I've been out here for a decade now, and there's been so much progress that's been made. And as you say, it's not just lip service anymore, because numbers don't lie. Yeah. So essentially, when these governments are taking a step back and thinking about their futures economically, it just makes sense to have more women involved.
And I think fora such as these are extremely important, because for women issues to be pushed forward, you need policy from governments. You need the private sector involvement, and also you need IFIs to be there. So this whole SDG 17, which is on partnerships, etc., comes to life in a forum such as this. In Egypt as well, we are going to be engaging with the World Economic Forum and the private sector on closing the gender gap accelerator, which is extremely exciting. So again, it's an international platform where you bring the stakeholders and you actually design policies that push women issues forward.
And of course, the Egyptian economy has been undergoing some major reforms as well. Are you able to quantify the economic impact that an empowered woman would have on the Egyptian economy?
Yes, well, many studies have been done on that. For example, one of the goals for the government is to push financial inclusion for women from 9% to 18% by 2030. Also the estimates show that if more women if there is parity, then definitely the economy sort of doubles. So these are all very important statistics. Something else which, and there's a panel that I'll be participating in on women in politics or women in government, and I feel that changing societal perception is extremely important, and that happens when women in positions do well. So basically that opens the door for more. For example, our Financial Regulatory Authority just passed the legislation last month that for any company to be listed, it has to have at least one female on its board. So all of these are important steps in pushing, as you mentioned, and all of us agree now, is not just lip service, but really a quantifiable impact on GDP growth, productivity, and basically a way or a catalyst to push all the agenda for SDGs forward.
And of course, other economies in the region have also been looking at the Egypt example when it comes to diversification. What does the next phase of the opening up of the economy look like? And what talks have you been having with the IMF about the next phase of that package? What does it look like?
So everybody has been following Egypt's successful IMF program, which ended last June. Programs are monetary, fiscal, and then you have the structural element. And everyone globally today is talking about structural reforms. Structural reforms are always done on a sectoral level, and those are extremely important to basically unlock all the potential in different sectors. When I was Minister of Tourism, I launched the Egypt Tourism Reform Program, which is a structural reform program, and through it we were able to get highest revenues in Egypt's history. Similar programs are going to be, structural programs are going to be done in other sectors as well. We are putting all of this together, and it will be announced so that people can follow these reforms, which are basically, again, priority is to bring in more private sector investment, unlock potential, increase participation and employment. So it's going to be a very exciting second phase, one which is, as the first one, very homegrown, and everyone doing their, this is 2020, 10 years till SDGs, and basically every country is, through its national program, putting its effort to be transparent, clear, and tell everyone its story.
The last time that I spoke with President Sisi, this was, I think, 2 years ago now, this was a real big part of his agenda, was to advance the cause of women in terms of empowerment, but also in terms of job growth. We've seen so much excitement, obviously, from investors about getting involved now in the Egyptian economy, the energy space in particular. Yes. How important is it, do you think, that international corporates, when they come in, have a plan in place to put women at the head of the table, at the top of the board, and frankly, get them on the ground at all levels?
So now in my capacity as Minister of International Cooperation, all ODA and development finance sort of comes through the ministry. And one thing that I'm discussing is that before any project qualifies to get financing, it does have to have a gender element. We do have very strong political will. You're very correct in pointing that out. And really, it's when there's a mindset that it's not just adding statistics to look good, but actually believing in competency, believing in the message itself, all of this pushes forward. With corporates, I've had several meetings over the past 5 weeks, and my message to them is everything that you do needs to be narrated around SDGs. I think that's what we need for public citizens globally in any country, because all of them cross-cut our lives in a very direct way. For all of us to understand the impact and how they're all interrelated is very, very important. Private sector plays a very important role because the financing agenda is sort of imminent. Public finances are not always there. International institutions do not have all the resources. So this idea of blended finance, so private sector comes in either through direct investment or even philanthropy to be able to push some of the agenda that governments have.
I think the IMF is forecasting about 6% growth for Egypt in 2020. Do you see any risks to that outlook?
I mean, of course, globally, there's the risk of a slowdown just because of the coronavirus that is yet to be quantified on how it's going to impact different regions. But of course, that is a risk that's not just on Egypt, but more globally. I think, as you mentioned earlier, the economy is so diversified. We have a good story when it comes to tourism. The rebound is very, very strong. We have a very good story when it comes to oil and gas. We had a fantastic conference, Egypt, which is the petroleum show, and the presence of different companies from all over the world is again a testament to the business environment that exists. We're focusing on manufacturing and industry going forward. So I think it's a very compelling story, and 2020 promises to be a good one.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Your Excellencies, thanks so much for joining us. Stick with Capital Connection. We'll have more from the Women's Global Forum in Dubai coming up.